Zhang Xuan isn't aware of the events that occurred in the Wang clan. After the lesson ended, he walks towards the compendium pavilion. My cultivation might have progressed significantly, but I still don't have an in-depth understanding of battle techniques and such. I should quickly look into them. Also, I should also take a look at the 1 dan and 2 dan cultivation techniques. Otherwise, if I were to go the lessons without knowing anything, I would definitely give myself away. Zhang Xuan's had multiple breakthroughs in his cultivation yesterday night, causing his strength has soared significantly. However, his knowledge on battle techniques and such are severely lacking. Furthermore, he doesn't have an in-depth knowledge of the 1 dan and 2 dan cultivation techniques. For example, when he was offering pointers to Zhao Ya earlier today, he didn't know what kind of cultivation technique he should have imparted her to resolve the problem of her pure yin body. This is the ideal time to do a bit of research and prepare for the next lesson. Otherwise, if he is unable to answer the questions of his students, he would expose his ignorance. Elder Mo. Arriving at the compendium pavilion again, Elder Mo is still guarding the entrance to it. What are you here for? Yesterday, this fellow, in pursuit of his vanity, came here to make a mess, so Elder Mo had a bad impression of him. Seeing how he is here today again, he couldn't help but frown. I would like to see the manuals on battle techniques. Zhang Xuan bows. Battle techniques? One's cultivation level is the core of one's strength. Instead of training properly with your cultivation technique, you just had to learn from the negative examples of others, pursuing vanity, enjoying the pleasures of the illusion and slacking about. Today, you don't have to think about entering the compendium pavilion. Elder Mo waves his hand to chase him away. In his opinion, Zhang Xuan's purpose here isn't even to read the books, rather, he is here to flip through them, to remember a few distinguished points in them, to put up a knowledgeable image. The greatest trouble in the guidance of one's student is to impart incomplete knowledge. When your pail of knowledge is only half full, it is easy for one's student's cultivation to go berserk through misguidance. Yesterday, Zhang Xuan was here twice, and both times, he was only casually flipping through the manuals. Given his speed, he probably doesn't even remember the names of the book, needless to say remembering them. What else can his actions represent, other than his pursuit of vanity? The compendium pavilion is a location for teachers to research and study at. How can such a person be allowed entry? I pursue vanity and enjoy the pleasures of the illusion? Zhang Xuan blinks and confusion could be seen in his eyes. Why would he say such words? He couldn't resist asking, Elder Mo, I am really here to learn and not to create trouble . Just as he is in the midst of clarifying the situation, footsteps could be heard from his back and an elegant voice sounds out. Elder Mo, I will be going in to grab a few books. Turning around to take a look, it is the goddess teacher he met yesterday, Shen Bairu. At this current moment, Shen Bairu is dressed in light purple. Her slender body accompanied by her incredible figure and her flawless face brought out an exquisite and refined aura which radiates her surroundings. Oh, it is Shen Laoshi. Go on in. Seeing that it is her, Elder Mo doesn't even try to stop her in the least. Not only is Shen Bairu beautiful, she is also a reputable genius among the teachers. Despite being just 20-year-old, she has already reached Fighter 5 Dan pinnacle, just a step away from Pig's realm. Thank you, Elder Mo. She nods her head elegantly. Turning around, she notices Zhang Xuan, who is just standing by the side, and couldn't help but to be a little surprised. In the past, although Zhang Xuan had never confessed to her, he would blush upon catching sight of her, and would be unable to speak in front of her, bashful like a lady. Even the densest of people could tell that something was amiss. Initially, she thought that this would be the case this time as well. However, he only takes a glance at her before turning around, the adoration he held for her in the past totally absent in those clear eyes of his that resemble the pure spring water. as though he is completely immune to her beauty. The most important point of all is that Zhang Xuan isn't strong, and he scored badly for his teacher qualification examination as well. As a result, he would always feel inferior upon seeing other teachers, causing him possess an unconfident disposition from his lack of self-esteem. However, at this moment, just by standing there, he looks dignified with the aura of an extraordinary person. Just by looking at his disposition itself, he is a completely different person from how he was in the past. Recalling the situation when they met yesterday, he even dared to refute Shang Bin straight on. Shen Bairu couldn't help but feel bewildered. When did that awkward young man, who had an inferiority complex, change so much? Elder Mo, I am also here to browse through the books. Why is she allowed to enter while I am denied entry? Zhang Xuan is oblivious to the thoughts of the other party, and could only gesture helplessly. Despite being both teachers, he is discriminated even in the privilege to browse through books. What ill luck! Shen Laoshi is entering the pavilion to study. As for what you are going in for, you should be more than aware of it. Do you still need me to point it out for you? Elder Mo harumphed coldly. There are only manuals inside, what else could I be doing inside? With a bitter smile, Zhang Xuan shakes his head. Of course I am entering the pavilion, to read books and to enhance my knowledge. Enhance your knowledge? HMPH. Elder Mo is displeased. Flipping through books non-stop, not even stopping in the midst to read through them properly, and you call it studying? Every single cultivation technique inside is incomparably precious. You can't possibly expect to enhance your knowledge by leaps and bounds just by flipping through tons of books without even jotting down notes. How could you possibly study like this? Elder Mo. Just as he is about to continue explaining, Shen Bairu smiles faintly, her smile reminiscent of the blooming of a flower, as she says, Zhang Laoshi might really be here to learn. So, why don't you just let him enter? If he were to be stopped here like this, it wouldn't leave a good impression on the other teachers. Since Shen Laoshi pleaded on your account, I will allow you to enter. However, I will tell you in advance first. If you want to look through the books, look through them properly. If I see you wandering around in there and putting up a show, just wait and see how I will punish you. Elder Mo gestures. You have my gratitude. Zhang Xuan nods his head, then cups his hand towards Shen Bairu, to show his appreciation for her help, before walking into the compendium pavilion. Initially, Shen Bairu thought that since she helped him, he would make use of the opportunity to strike up a conversation with her. Yet, he simply turned around to leave, leaving Shen Bairu a little stunned. Although she is a little surprised, she didn't pay much heed to it and follows behind him into the compendium pavilion. It was just a casual whim of hers to help Zhang Xuan, there wasn't any special reason or intention behind her action. Since the other party didn't want to chat with her, she is also happy to be spared the conversation. To think that coming into the compendium pavilion would be so troublesome. The next time, I probably won't be able to enter anymore. Standing in front of the bookshelves, Zhang Xuan did not rush to flip through the books and instead, scratches his head. He didn't know why did Elder Mo stop him, but he is sure that it has something to do with his identity, as the worst teacher in the academy. The identity is awkward no matter where he goes. Not just on the recruitment of students, even his colleagues despise him. The main reason why he is able to enter this time is thanks to Shen Bairu's words. However, what about the next time? This compendium pavilion isn't very big anyway. If I hurry up, I might be able to browse through it all within today. This way, I won't need to enter the next time. Suddenly, a thought flashes through his mind. Since Elder Mo is determined to stop him, he should just make it so that he would not need to come any more in the future. Given the size of the library, There are hundreds of thousands of books in here. Even if one were to spend their entire lives here, they probably wouldn't be able to finish reading through them. However, he is different. No matter what kind of books it is, as long as he flips through it, he would be able to compile an identical book of it in the library of Heaven's Path with its flaws recorded in it. If he were to move quickly, it shouldn't be impossible for him to imprint all of these books into his head within a single day. Once he succeeds, he wouldn't need to go through so much trouble to come here to look for books. Begin. The moment the thought pops into his mind, Zhang Xuan doesn't dawdle any longer and immediately walks towards the first bookshelf. Not concerned with what books they are, he casually grabs a handful of them and hula flips through them. Hoo. Just as he expected, the Library of Heaven's Path jolts and an identical book, as the one in his hands appears on the bookshelf in it. That's the way to go. After realizing that it is possible to compile multiple books simultaneously, he walks forward and grabs several books at once and imprints them into his head concurrently. Hula. The sound of footsteps and flipping of books echoes in the compendium pavilion. That fellow, he still dares to claim otherwise, that he isn't putting on a show in pursuit for vanity. Elder Mo, who is outside guarding the library, has been paying attention to Zhang Xuan from the moment he enters the library. The previous time, that fellow only flipped through a book at a time before putting it back. Although it is clear to see that he isn't really serious about it, at least it still looks acceptable. Now, he is taking dozens of books at once and playing with them, placing it back in the shelves, before he could even see the titles clearly. What the heck is he doing? Is he here to read books or to choose cabbage? Furthermore, after looking at the manuals, which the other party is looking through, he feels a spell of giddiness. Cultivation of wisteria? Basics to the relationship of a male and female, the way of amalgamating yin and yang, refining green emerald peel and the important aspects one should take note of in forging equipment. There are books on all kinds of fields. Cultivation technique, battle technique, cultivation of medical herbs, even on male-female relationship. As long as it is a book, there is nothing that this fellow would not flip through. Everyone has their own shortcomings and merits, and there are limits to a person's energy. It is impossible for one to master every single field. Thus, one has to choose properly on which book they should look through. However, this fellow flips through every single book without any hesitation. Is he sure that he isn't here to create trouble? He must be here to cause trouble. When he leaves, I will make sure to teach him a lesson. Elder Mo's face darkens as he harumphes coldly. Shen Bairu, who is the compendium pavilion as well, hears the continuous sounds of footsteps and flipping of books. Initially, she didn't think much into it, but as time passed, she started to feel that something is amiss with the situation. One would need to read a book slowly to comprehend its contents. How can it be possible for anyone to flip through it so quickly? Bewildered, she couldn't resist walking over to take a look. After which, she sees Zhang Xuan flipping the books from the first shelf. It is very apparent to see that he isn't reading through the contents of the books, but more like looking for something. Is this the reason why Elder Mo denied him entry? After watching for a moment, she realizes that the other party doesn't have the intention to stop. Shen Bairu's heart beats. Previously, the reason why she couldn't resist speaking out to help him upon seeing the difference between the current him and his previous self is because she wants him to work hard so as to be freed from his current awkward position. However, she would have never imagined that this fellow isn't here to study but to look for something. This is the compendium pavilion. Every day, there are innumerable teachers who come in, so it is impossible for there to be anything valuable hidden here. Flipping through these books so casually is almost a blasphemy to this compendium pavilion. How repulsive. Perhaps. He knew that I would be coming to the compendium pavilion today, so he intentionally waited outside, then came in to make such a ruckus to capture my attention. HMPH, this would only provoke my ire. The image of the young man in Shen Bairu's heart falls to the pits. Due to her beauty, many people have tried many ways to get on her good side, as well as to attract her attention. In her opinion, Zhang Xuan isn't even trying to look through the books. Rather, he is intentionally making those noises to change her opinion of him. In reality, she hates it when people make up this kind of show. After looking at her a moment longer, she ascertains her opinion. If he is truly here to browse through the books, how could he possibly be reading books of all genres? Furthermore, to be flipping through them at such rapid speed, he is probably unable to even ascertain the name of the manual, needless to say, its contents. HMPH. With a darkened expression on her beautiful face, she walks over to Zhang Xuan. Zhang Laoshi, what are you doing? Reading books. Zhang Xuan doesn't realize that his actions have already been labeled as putting up a show, and replies casually without raising his head. Reading books? HMPH. Shen Bairu harumphes coldly. Coldness emanates from her jade-like face as she says, if you think that your actions are cool and would attract my attention, please retract those immature thoughts of yours. I, Shen Bairu, do not fall for such petty tricks. Furthermore, your actions will only incur my irritation. Oh. All right. Zhang Xuan continues flipping through his books. He intends to imprint all of the manuals in the compendium pavilion onto the Library of Heaven's path by today, and time is a little tight for him, so he doesn't have the effort to spare to be chatting with others. Besides, in his opinion, the other party is simply being too self-important. What business does she have to do with what he is doing? You might be truly pretty, but it isn't like I have yet to meet a beautiful woman like you. In the previous world, in the era of information, there are all kinds of beauties stored in the hard disk. Furthermore, they are skilled in blowing, pulling, playing and singing. A cold beauty like you does not hold much interest to me. I don't have the energy to think of ways to attract your attention. Since you understand it, please leave this compendium library. Stop wasting your effort here. Seeing how the young man's head remains lowered, still putting on a show, Shen Bairu turns and gestures him to leave. Ding 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 ding. The sound of the footsteps of the young man leaving. This is more like it. Seeing how he gives up readily, Shen Bairu nods her head in satisfaction. Just as she is about to continue to read her book, she hears the sound of the flipping of books echoing in the library once again. Hulala. Hulala. Turning her head to take a look, she realizes that the young man had no intention to leave. You. Shen Bairu almost explodes from anger. Are you done yet? I have already said that doing this will just incur my irritation, yet you still persist in doing so. Is there a point to it? At this point, her slim figure straightens and she walks up to Zhang Xuan once again, and disgust could be clearly seen in her pitch-black pupils. Did you not hear my words? The more you behave like this, the more disgusted I would be with you. You won't earn my fancy like this. Are you sick? Seeing the other party coming over to bother him again, Zhang Xuan is a little irritated. He stops in his actions and says, you read your own stuff, while I'll read my own. If you are really bored, you can squat by a corner and draw circles. Don't bother me here. It is not like I have never met a beautiful lady in my life before. Why are you acting so haughtily? You. She didn't expect the young man to speak like this. Shen Bairu feels her sight blurring and she almost dies from the overwhelming rage welling in her. Who is she? Hongtian Academy's #1 beauty. Blessed with great talent and looks, almost all of the teachers and students in the academy regard her as a goddess. Before her, they would act respectfully, not daring to even speak loudly for fear of offending her. Yet, you dare to say, I am sick? even asking me to squat at a corner to draw circles? I am a lady, all right. Draw circles, draw your mum's fat head. Shen Bairu feels a heavy and stuffy sensation on her chest that she is unable to relieve. Hulala. Hulala. Her face flushes red from anger. Just as she is about to reprimand the other party, she realizes that the young man has gone back to flipping through the books after being done with his words, not even sparing her an additional glance. Fine, fine. Continue putting on an act. See how I will reveal your true colors. Luo, Shen Bairu grits her teeth tightly and stomps her leg. This is the first time that a man has talked to her in such a manner. Fine, aren't you putting on an act of browsing through the books now? Let's see how long you can put up with it. When you are finally unable to continue on, I will expose you and leave you embarrassed. Then, Shen Bairu no longer bothers herself with Zhang Xuan and instead, angrily walks back to the manual she had looked for previously and casually takes it out. Then, sitting in a corner in the room, she starts copying it down. Initially, her mood was quite good today and she intended to study for quite a while to boost her knowledge. Yet, never in her dreams would she expect to meet such an infuriating fellow. In the midst of copying down her notes, she sneaks glances periodically towards him. The young man still continues flipping through all of the books with the same speed, seemingly adamant to leave no book unturned. It seems that, as long as it is a book of the compendium pavilion, he would surely flip through it once. HMPH. Let's see how long you can keep up the act for. After being rebuked by Zhang Xuan, Shen Bairu no longer retains her calmness from before and she intends to make things difficult for him. As she copies down her notes slowly, she waits for the moment when the other party is unable to keep up with the act. However, what that leaves her bewildered is that the young man repeats his actions over and over again with the same astonishing speed. From the very first bookshelf, he moves from one row to another, flipping through the books, from afternoon to night, not even sparing a single minute to rest. It has already been 6 to 7 hours, but yet the fellow is still persisting on with the same motion. Even Shen Bairu finds it inconceivable at this point. If his aim was to attract her attention, she has already clearly told him that she detests such actions, so he should have stopped then. So, how is it possible for him to continue flipping through like this? Not to mention, for such a long period of time? Could this fellow's brain be convulsing or something? Has his cultivation went berserk and he himself became insane? Suddenly, a thought pops up in her head. She has heard that when one's cultivation goes berserk, one would start to do many abnormal actions. Could it be that flipping through books non-stop here be one of this kind of abnormal actions? She is looking at the young man with a bizarre expression, as she starts to think that the young man is abnormal, when she notices that Zhang Xuan stopping in his actions, after flipping through the books in the final row. So much knowledge. After a consecutive 6 to 7 hours of hard work, he has finally imprinted all of the books in Hongtian Academy's teacher compendium pavilion in the Library of Heaven's Path in his head. Through the compilation of flaws and strengths from the Library of Heaven's Path towards each individual book, he gains a certain level of understanding towards the cultivation technique, battle technique, pills, equipment forging, formations and such. With Zhao Ya's pure yin body, she should cultivate this manual. However, before that, I have to do some preparations. After imprinting the entire compendium pavilion, he finally understands how he should solve the problem with Zhao Ya's physical body. He couldn't resist heaving a breath of relief. He has even found out the loopholes and incomplete portions in the previous 3 dan of his cultivation. As long as he finds some time to recultivate through them, he can correct and perfect them. Gugagoo. When he is finally finished, he feels an ache in his stomach. After working for such a long period of time, his hunger pangs has already long struck, just that he was oblivious to it then. Shaking his head, he starts to walk towards the exit of the compendium pavilion. However, he had only taken a few steps when he sees Shen Bairu standing before him, looking at him with a cold gaze. To think that this woman would still be here after he has flipped through the books for 6 to 7 hours. Can't be bothered with such a self-important fellow. Zhang Xuan continues walking towards the exit of the compendium pavilion. Stop it right there. When he has just walked through the exit, he hears Elder Mo bellowing at him. At this very instant, Elder Mo's face darkens to the point that it seems like the coalescence of numerous storm clouds, ready to explode at any moment. He has tolerated this young man for very long. At this moment, there is only a thought in his head. Troublemaker, troublemaker, and troublemaker. Elder Mo. Zhang Xuan looks at him with a puzzled expression. HMPH, Zhang Xuan Laoshi. Elder Mo's face is cold. With an intentionally harsher tone, he says, "You came to the compendium pavilion not to study, but to intentionally cause trouble. From now on, the compendium pavilion no longer welcomes you. If you step in here once more, I will break your legs." Causing trouble? Elder Mo, where did all these come from? I have been looking through the books seriously. How did I become a troublemaker? Although he had already duplicated an identical compendium pavilion in his head, and no longer has to come here, he still feels displeased upon hearing those words. Why is it that when other people are here, you think of them as studying, but when I am here, you think of me as a troublemaker? What kind of logic is this? Aren't you being too unreasonable?
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never say.